Hey guys, it's Hunt4Games, and you guys have asked for at least one of these jobs quite a bit since I've started these artifact videos, and that's really convenient because I was planning on doing it soon anyway. One of my first advanced jobs, it had a storyline that really sold me on Final Fantasy XI as a game that I could play for years, and gameplay so weirdly unique that I realized I might never stop finding unique ways to play this game. I'm talking, of course, of the Purple Wonder itself, Dragoon, and because how do you not pair these two together, I'll add in Dark Knight to this video too, but I mean, who cares compared to Dragoon? Dark Knight sucks. I'm just kidding. My good friend was Dark for a long time. Whenever possible, I give him crap on how shitty his job was. But mostly I was just jealous. Like Dragoon, Dark was a job that struggled for many years to gain acceptance as a top tier DD. When skill chains became a thing of the past, one of Dark's greatest values is a strong, light skill chain closer kind of went out the window, leading to the spiraling depression of my Dark Knight friend, which I added to as much as possible by reminding him constantly that my Fenrir was more useful than he was for basically everything. Just kidding, of course. But with Dark Knight's awesomely unique approach to basically every aspect of combat, it was bound to struggle balance-wise at certain points in its Final Fantasy XI, like, tenure. All of its abilities tended to rip hate off tanks just by, like, using the ability, which is a bad thing because it also tended to suck dry most of their HP at the same time. Because of that extra drain on healers, Red Mage is often forgetting that they had a desperate need for MP themselves, and Calibri being introduced, which literally would cast their shit back on them. Dark's many benefits became less and less useful for general combat during the age of Ottergon. They got kind of a bad reputation for getting themselves killed more often than killing the enemy, and I've seen my buddy Lion face down the dirt enough times to know that's not entirely inaccurate. And do you remember the ridiculous quest to get Dark Knight? You had to kill 100 enemies with like the weakest and slowest greatsword in the game. Truly a test of endurance in this game, Final Fantasy XI. I got bored around kill number 5. The 5th B, I was like, wow, this is gonna be a thing. When played right, though, they could be a nasty force to be reckoned with, and the badass artifact armor reflected that perfectly. Providing awesome utility with stuns and feebles and eventually TP drains, having a Dark Knight around was awesome. But never tell anyone I said that. So on to the artifact, though. While sweet looking, the artifact did kind of suffer from the Monk Artifact Armor Syndrome, which is a name I just came up with. While useful for swap-ins, almost none of it was useful for wearing full-time. And it was a pain to get to, with LDM Necropolis, Devoy, and Castle Ostroja for the coffers. I mean, that's like one of the worst lists we've had yet. But it was pretty worth it. Just not for the boots, which is enhances Arcane Circle. Oh, how those Arcana will fear us. I mean, maybe during the Zilart days when we were fighting a lot of weapons at the 70+ region for XP, that would have been, like, amazing. But now... Now, post Chains of Prometheia, it's just those days have long since passed, making that ability very useful for like 99% of the game. But you never know. The gloves have some dex and weapon bash plus 10, which I used to think was like amazing. I thought it improved its accuracy with stun or something. No, apparently its accuracy with stun is already almost 100%. It's like amazing. It adds 10 base damage to the stun swing. I'd have to ask my friend if that's cool or not. I mean, it sounds good. I'm sure he swapped it in for every weapon bash he ever did, but... The pants continue on the okay train with plus 10 parrying and plus 5 evasion, which is great for soloing Darks who only have that as their only job. Which, I mean, I guess. I'm sure he wore them a lot when he was out soloing. He always had some crazy idea for like, oh, I use this belt, but only when I'm like soloing. That was a terrible story. That was like the worst example I could think of. They also do have 5 int though, and I remember my buddy used to swap those in for like every drain and spell he cast, because why not? The fun really begins with the body piece, though, with plus 5 Enfeebling Magic. Enfeebling Magic on Dark Knight was kind of like crossbow bolts on Thief, a super integral part of what the job was capable of, and subsequently almost immediately forgotten by basically everybody who played it. But for those like my friend that tried to eke out every aspect of the job's usefulness to its absolute fullest, plus 5 Enfeebling Magic to help land those difficult and honestly usually crucial sleeps or other enfeebles bind, I guess. Point is, when the good situation went wrong, if he could fix it, it was a godsend. He actually had a full Enfeebling set, I think, for his Dark Knight at one point, because he was also Red Mage, so he had a lot of gear like left over. He's like, I'm just going to make a set to make all my Enfeebles like awesome. It saved my ass more than a few times, so I can't really knock him for it. Attack plus 5 is also pretty neat, but let's face it, everybody was wearing the Harbergen at this point, which probably should get its own video, because the Harbergen was so damn popular, it's like really deserves its own focus. The real winner of the set was obviously the headpiece though, with plus 4 strength, dark magic skill plus 5 for drains, aspers, and absorbs, and enhances Soul Leader effect, increasing the damage output and HP draininess. This is where Darks went from only occasionally killing themselves to being a full-on danger to themselves and those around them, because they would just destroy things. I've watched him take out like literally 2/3 of his HP with a Berserk Soul Eater, Last Resort, Kill Myself. Plus, like 3 of those abilities are like a provoke level hate grabber. Dark Knight was a danger, but it was fun to watch. Like Paladin, I always kind of wanted to level Dark Knight in my mind, but early game for Dark Knight was just, frankly, just miserable. I mean, it was such a slow weapon delay, every miss was an eternity without doing some kind of damage. And until some decent accuracy gear came available, usually at level 40 with the frickin' Cypress ranks, it was a tough road. But enough about all that in Dark Knight, screw that, on to the main event. Dragoon was one of my earliest 75s, one of my favorite jobs in the game, and I wasn't kidding when I said it got me really excited about Final Fantasy XI and what the game was capable of. The story of finding the Wyvern's egg and the battle of the dragon's power overtaking the Dragoon, it was just frankly cool, and hatching the egg myself felt like a true achievement in a game where full-time pets were rare. You even got to name it. I loved it. And the fact that the Wyvern itself was the Dragoon's 2-hour, at least originally, it just added to the weight that this was a truly unique job with no others like it. The way that the Wyvern interacted with your sub-job, changing as you changed your job, I just couldn't get enough. Also, as soon as I got the job, I immediately tried to fight a crawler outside Windurst, and it poisoned my Wyvern and killed it. It was like my first hour as Dragoon. I just called him out, and I had to wait like an hour and 45 minutes until my Wyvern could come out again. It was an unforgiving and harsh life as a Dragoon for a long time, with AoEs killing your Wyvern constantly. But updates did remedy a lot of those issues for Dragoon, and as a Dragoon main myself, my friend and I had a fun little mini rivalry going on between Dragoon and Dark, which was made all the more enjoyable by the fact that they actually complemented each other really well. Dragoon, especially after the Samurai subjob changes, was really good at keeping up with Dark's insane TP gain fairly effectively through jumps and meditates that kind of paired up well with the absorb TPs and Dark Knight's possibly own use of meditate. On top of that, the weapon skills usually paired up pretty well to form light and dark skill chains. Even if they weren't super crucial for parties anymore, it still was extra damage and it was fun to just see him blasting off everywhere. But I've spent enough time reminiscing about shitty Dark Knights. Onto the artifact. Anyone who's played Final Fantasy XI recognizes the Dragoon artifact. If you've played a Final Fantasy game, you've probably recognized Dragoon artifact. It was impossible not to. In a game full of often muted colors, the bright purple armor was just like no other armor in the game. You were also terrified to see it in a party because most of it's not that great. Obtaining it wasn't that bad though, with coffers in the Boyata tree, which I am here now labeling the easy to follow coffer spots. Like seriously, people went in there to kill stuff just for fun. You partied in there. Come on. Quicksand Caves was kind of annoying, but not the worst. And Ifrit's Cauldron. Now, Ifrit's Cauldron was no joke. It was difficult to navigate, had those damn fire spouts that prevented you from being able to get inside, and half the things in there would do magic aggro, so you couldn't just sneak and invis yourself all the time because it was probably dangerous. But anyone who spent a lot of time down there, which I had for like Summoner and other stuff, would probably be alright. It was usually totally empty because it was miserable, so the coffers were always yours for the taking. And just as a note, the Helmet questline, the final piece questline, was the first time I remember hearing that favorite of all Final Fantasy XI music with the awesome electric guitar. And to this day is one of my top 5 favorite moments in this game for me, as I completed the Dragoon armor set. A set I didn't actually wear very often. The legs enhanced Ancient Circle for all those times you totally fought dragons in this game. Never. But more importantly, it gave 10% HP to your Wyvern, which kind of sounds stupid, but this was actually super useful for soloing. The healing Wyvern's healing strength was based on its HP, so if you equip these, it just straight up improved its healing. But more on that in a bit. The boots were badass for jump swap-ins, just straight up increasing their attack, but not much else. The gloves are where things really get confusing though. 3 decks is fine, I guess. Although you'd probably be wearing the battle gloves since you were level 15, or those amazing spiked finger gauntlets. Those things were awesome. But there was an argument to be made for the increased Wyvern accuracy, increasing your overall damage output by a little bit. Nobody really believed you, but I saw people wear them and I never really faulted them for it. The spiked finger gauntlets were super expensive. The body is really the ultimate letdown here, with the Wyvern regen only being useful in between battles, and it's basically also its only positive. And it's only 1 HP every 3 seconds. It's awful, but it looks so cool. I mean, Dragoon's gear options were few and far between. That's one of the struggles of the job. But at the time of this body piece, you better be wearing the Scorpion Harness if you hope to be doing alright. Or that level 55 thing that came out with Outergon. That was decent too. Regardless, you wouldn't be wearing the Dragoon AF, which is why every time you saw it in a party, you're like, what? Why? No. The head though, the amazing Dragon Armament. I mean, this is where things got truly interesting, and for me, it's one of the few pieces of gear in the game to truly change how the game was played. When wearing this, the threshold for the Mage sub Wyverns firing off Healing Breath changed from 1/3 of your HP to 1/2 of your HP. This meant that at level 60, out of nowhere, it meant from basically being a death sentence to try and solo anything difficult as Dragoon, to actually doable. I mean, doable as in chain Chaining Tufts. I used to get chain 3 on Tufts as a Taru. I was like the worst case you could possibly have for soloing as Dragoon. It was a big deal. I lived for weird ways to solo like this. I hunted them down in the game. I thought it was so cool. I used to love going out as Dragoon Red Mage or later Dragoon Blue, which was even cooler, and just try to solo the hardest things I could find. I died a lot. I died like all the time. I was a Taru. I died constantly. But it was just so cool that gear like this exists that fundamentally altered an aspect of your job and allowed you to do things that you just couldn't do before, opening up whole new opportunities. Anyways, guys, that's it for why Dragoon is infinitely better than Dark. And let me know in the comments which of these two jobs you wouldn't be inviting to your party, because chances are you're probably not inviting either of them. They struggle for a long time to get party invite. I know you're all going to invite some Rangers. Pre, post nerf, doesn't matter. You're still inviting the Rangers. Seriously, Dragoon was like the biggest underdog for most of the time I played it. I never got to play through the Penethrust infinite TP section of the game. So when I say this is way better than Dark Knight, I'm basically just blowing smoke out of my ass. But thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you guys next week. Awesome, random note, but with any luck, Katie's amazing birthday gift, the Nintendo Switch, is arriving like as we speak if this is coming out on Saturday. With even more luck, her visiting friends haven't arrived yet, and I've managed to sneak off and try it out. That's probably not the case, but regardless, expect a video soon of my first impressions of the Switch, of the hardware, and of Zelda, which is the only game I'm getting for it so far, and I think the only game really available for it so far. Anyway, stay on the lookout for that, and again, thanks for watching, guys. See you next week. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, you should totally think about subscribing. I've got videos coming out twice a week, and if you like this one, there's at least a chance you'll like some of the others that are very similar to this, so live dangerously. Let me know what you guys thought about the video in the comments and other videos you'd like to see. And finally, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Hunting for Games to keep up with all the latest stuff. See ya.